I think it's important to address fitness 24/7 the same way we do with spa. We've got the client for an hour a month, maybe in a spa. In fitness, maybe you even have them an hour a day. But what about the other 23? Like, how are we affecting their life outside of that 1 hour of using our equipment?
This is All Things Fitness and Wellness, hosted by Chrissy Van. Together, we're uniting industry thought leaders and fitfluencers on the mission to inspire innovation and encourage people to live a life fit and well. On today's episode, we have Lisa Starr joining us, the principal of Wynne Business Consulting and Education, task force chair for the Global Wellness Institute Consulting Initiative, and host of the StarrCast Podcast. In this episode, Lisa will be sharing valuable insights from the spa industry that can be seamlessly applied to fitness business. We'll be discussing current labor shortages and hiring trends, wellness trends to watch out for in the remainder of 2024, and the fascinating convergence of hospitality, fitness, and sport. Before we get to it, be sure to hit like and subscribe. We have new podcast episodes weekly featuring industry thought leaders and influencers. I'm your host, Chrissy Van, and this is ATFW. Well, Lisa Starr, I am so grateful to have you because at time of recording, we're coming off the heels of Global Wellness Day, and this has really become this incredible momentum in the hospitality industry, within spas, within all sectors and facets. And the theme this year, of course, was encouraging us to get out in nature, about reconnection. And truthfully, I think that's what so much of the wellness industry is about reconnecting with self. So you're an incredible expert. So thank you so much for taking the time to join us on All Things Fitness and Wellness.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for asking me.
So I did kind of start off the conversation, as we heard in your intro as well. You're no stranger to the industry itself. So talk to me a little bit about how you got involved in this sector in the first place.
That's a great question. Sometimes when I'm asked, I have to think, wait, how did I get it? But I came up through being a technician, and I was on the beauty side, and I started in the 80s, dating myself. So we didn't have wellness. It wasn't a thing. Spas were not a thing. I was a makeup artist, and I worked in a retail store, but as a makeup artist, not like for a big brand. And did people's makeup and sold makeup, then I started my own brand, and then I went as a concession into multiple salons in the city in which I lived, which is Philadelphia. It's where I am now. And so I had my makeup concession in a few places, and one of those places was a full service salon trying to become a spa. And I spent 12 years there, and in that 12 years, I stopped doing makeup and I went to work for them, and I went through a variety of management positions, and I ended up as the general manager of the company. And so at the time I left, we had gone from one location to four, and we had about 200 employees. We were successful, but it was timing. It was just the time when the word spa was becoming popular and people wanted to know, well, what is that? Can I do that? And so I spent 12 years there, and I saw what to do and kind of what not to do in order to have a successful business. So when I left there, I said, I'd like to help other people avoid the pitfalls that I saw made in our journey, which stumbled. And it was mostly because there was no blueprint at the time. Like, spas weren't a thing, so no one quite knew what to do. So I went into consulting, and that has been, I'm going to say, almost 25 years ago.
There's all these synchronistic things. You decide to lean in. All of a sudden, you've climbed this ladder, and there's been a lot of learnings on the way. And I like that you highlight the fact this was an industry that wasn't even necessarily clearly defined at the time. And I know even I've spoken with different members of the Global Wellness Institute in the past that have talked about even defining that word wellness. So talk to me about the evolution that you have seen when it comes to wellness, because you know as well as I do, go on any social platform, it's one of the biggest words that we see utilized by people all over the globe, and what we're really trying to prioritize in 2024.
Well, that's a great point, Christy. Let me go predate that. And I'm going to say that when I became a consultant, I was a spa consultant. And I would be flying somewhere in the country on an engagement, and I'd be on a plane sitting next to someone who would say, what do you do? And I would say, well, I'm a spa consultant. And they would say, oh, you sell hot tubs? So so I was like, no, actually, there are places where you get massages and facials and that was, what happened 20 plus years ago. Now, when I say I'm a spa consultant, people go, oh my God, that's so great. That must be such a great job. So I think, okay, we're making progress. People know what that is now. And to your point, the wellness word, right? So you mentioned the Global Wellness Institute, and that started as an event, the Global Spa Summit was what it was called when it started. And it was called the Global Spa Summit until probably, I think it's been about 8 years that they shifted their name to the Global Wellness Summit because already, I mean, they're really like people that look down the road and have the visionary eye about what's coming. And they could see that spa was becoming less of a thing in wellness, more so. It's not a new word, but the current iteration of it and the usage of it is spectacular. If you look at like Google searches for the word wellness and it's like flat, flat, flat for years and then zoom up, everyone wants it. They're not sure what it is, but it sounds good. And they think whatever wellness is, I want that. I want to be well. So that's what we've been preaching for the last 10 or 12 years. And then comes COVID, right? And, that was a tough time. Of course, everyone shut down. We all got on calls every week. The Global Wellness Institute had a global call every week. People, hundreds of us would get on from around the world and say, are we going to have a job? What should we do? And what happened when places started to reopen, my clients that reopened were June and July of that year of 2020. They were busier than ever. And looking back, I think most of us would say that we received a lift from COVID because we raised awareness that we had been trying to raise for years on self-care and taking care of yourself and, the benefits, the physiological benefits of going to a spa and having a massage or sitting in warm water or treating yourself to a facial. And COVID really, just amped that up 100-fold. And we haven't looked back. Most spas are as busy as they can possibly be today.
Yeah, it is incredible when you talk about hey, I love how you verbalize that. People searching for the word and being like, don't know exactly what it is, but I
Mhm.
want it.
Mm.
And from the consumer level, you can see it. Like I live in Vancouver and we know the cold plunge and sauna market has been exponential. And just how many facilities I've seen marked now on the blueprint of my city of people that are kind of trading that former focus on perhaps less beneficial things like going out and drinking at a bar at night. And instead, it's like, let's get in a room together, hot, cold plunge and breathe. You can see these shifts that are happening in the mindsets of individuals because, to your point, they were forced to take a pause as well. And we know when we sit in a little bit of stillness, what we're not doing for ourselves becomes terribly apparent if you're paying attention. And I think it made a lot of people have an aha moment and pay attention. At the end of the day, yes, businesses are there to be profitable and make money, but it is the type of business, and I say the same thing on the fitness side, where we know those of us that do these modalities or practices that it does make an exponential difference to your life mentally, socially, physically. So it's an incredible thing to actually be behind and selling. What are some of the current trends? Because I know when we start off 2024, it's constant listicles of trends to
Mm.
watch and how many articles are there, wellness trends to watch. As we're halfway through 2024, what are the ones that you're seeing really gain a strong foothold?
Well, we have moved, we went from spa to wellness to recovery, right? And that's a word you hear a lot now. And this is applying in fitness as well. So there are a few catalysts for that. And I think COVID was one in various ways. It wasn't just the awareness that consumers got about being sick and their potential and their the role they play in making themselves better. It was also because the industry became challenged with staffing. And globally, people did not come back to work. And so we had spas to fill and not staff to staff them. And so owners started to look at, well, what can we do in our space without having a trained therapist to perform it? There was recovery services. And so I think I'm loving the way those are melding into the spa platform, and we're seeing it in fitness too. And when I say recovery, I mean generally services that are self-catered, that a person can use your equipment or your facility as long as they may want to do something that makes them feel better. We have cold plunges, hot pools, right? Mineral pools, hot tubs, halotherapy booths, cryotherapy, along with cold plunges. We have lymphatic drainage, percussive therapy, LED lights, infrared saunas, guided meditations, breath work, meditation, and the list goes on. But we're seeing much more of that integration into a normal spa operation now. And then now I see it again creeping into fitness. But we will continue to see that. The new word that we're hearing is longevity. And this also plays a role in that. I mean, if you can keep yourself young, you will have longevity. So I think this is the main shift we're going to be looking at for the next few years.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it's like when we look at longevity, people wanting to actively age, to live well and build
Mhm.
those foundations before you get there. And there is this tremendous shift in focus. But you brought up the labor shortages, which I know is a problem in the wellness industry as well as the fitness industry. What kind of practices would you consult businesses to really help try and mitigate some of the turnover or churn that's being experienced or to attract some of that new talent?
It's like my first question to you is how long do we have? I mean, that's a big order, but I'll give you a few things that I would counsel on. Um, First of all, it's having options for guests that don't need staff, right? So if you've got 8 treatment rooms to fill and you're open 7 days a week, I mean, you need 40 or 50 people to fill that, especially if you offer massage where they don't work an 8-hour day in massage. I mean, if you're open 12 hours, you might need 3 different therapists to fill 1 room. So if you've got 8 rooms, that's a lot of people that we don't have. So we have to think differently how to use our space. Um, it isn't that we pay more. That is not the answer. I mean, our staffs were already well paid. So it isn't that. I don't think it's a money thing that's keeping them away. It's quality of life. It is the gig economy.
Mhm.
People always had these other ways to earn money when the internet came along, but they became more aware of them in COVID. And now they have side businesses and they make things on Etsy and they drive for Uber and they like it. And okay, I can't blame them, but I don't think they're going to put all that down and come back to a schedule. Young people today are resistant to being committed to a certain schedule, and that's great for them, but it's not great if you're trying to run a business. So we speak about culture and the importance of having a culture that your potential employees identify with, community, sustainability, whatever it is that you put that front and center on your website and your collaterals and you live it. You need to hire more people than you ever used to cover the same schedule. You need to be flexible and know that they're going to ask to change their schedule once a month, and that's just how it goes. And it's frustrating, but it is what it is. We are lucky, I remind people, that AI cannot deliver massages or facials yet. We are seeing robot massage devices come onto the market, but it's not the same as the human touch, and they are not meant to replace it. They're meant to augment. So the good news is we aren't going to lose our businesses to AI. We do have to touch people, but we have to know that it's going to look a little different than it used to. And we have to be patient and flexible with the staff. We have to make it fun. We have to reward them for coming in and do things together to make it fun and enlightening. And owners always need to be thinking about how else can I bring in revenue without having a labor person present.
Yeah, I mean, you highlight something on the overarch there that really this tremendous mind shift in management has had to happen and so rapidly too, because The frustrations for sure are enormous. At the end of the day, you're a revenue generating business and you need staff to ensure that that is happening. And all of a sudden, the behaviors of your staff have changed so exponentially in a short period of time. And we come from a time where, I mean, my goodness, when I was a teenager, I sold Crocs for summer and I showed up for every shift and I had to touch dirty feet all the time. So it's hard to not almost begrudge being like, why is this so difficult? But the earlier that you can kind of marry the fact that things have shifted tremendously for those that you are hiring in your door, the easier it's going to be. And I'm really happy that you highlighted on the AI point as well, because obviously it's a huge part of the conversation. It can be an incredibly helpful tool in a lot of capacities when it comes to a lot of the administration or back end or communications online with consumers. But you are in the business of human touch. And at the end of the day, we're getting freakishly close, but we know that there's something to be said about social connection, and I think it's what a lot of human beings are craving as well.
You're starting to see the articles now. There was just one in the Wall Street Journal yesterday, I think, that AI is not all it's cracked up to be. I mean, everyone fears it. I think we just need to know how to harness it. It can be a great tool for management in terms of coming up with marketing ideas or streamlining your menu or, just getting ideas how to run a meeting, but it isn't going to replace what we do in across the spa, beauty, fitness silos. I mean, we are always touching and talking to people. And I went to my F45 workout this morning. I mean, I could take my phone to the Planet Fitness, where I also have a membership, and do my workout alone, but I'd rather do it with other people.
Mhm.
And so luckily humans are group animals, and hopefully we will not forget that as we move forward. We just, as I said, we have to be flexible. Those of us that are older, we didn't have all these options when we were younger. You went to work, you found your job in the newspaper, whatever. It's just a very different world, and we can't be sitting here thinking, well, when is it going to go back to what it was? Because it's not.
Kind of on that note, when it comes to your consulting work, what are some of the common challenges that your clients are experiencing in this climate of mid 2024 and being in these post-pandemic years?
Well, the most common one is I don't make enough money. Why that is. Generally, there's a few main reasons, which is A, they went in undercapitalized. B, and probably in the States, the most frequent is they pay their staff too much. Um, or C is that they don't have a clear identity of the business. There are something like, you get different estimates from different sources, but let's call it 23,000 spas in the United States. Okay, so you do facials and massages, great. So do the other 23,000. So what is special or different about you? And when they're not differentiated, it is really harder to attract a new guest. Let me go back to the payment comment because I don't want to incite anger, but in the States, the way spas were set up, patterned salons, and in the northeast of the country, it was common, and still is strangely in some areas, to pay people a percentage of the revenue they brought in. And it was a very high percentage, could be 50 or 60%. And that worked in salons and that worked in the 1960s, but it doesn't work today. And yet many businesses just did that because they didn't know what else to do. Spas in the United States came from salons. So the salon owner said, okay, I have all these hair stations. I think I'll have a massage and facial room and I'll just pay people the same way I pay the hairdressers. And, flash forward 20 years and you've got internet sites and locker rooms and tranquility rooms and zero gravity loungers and spa attendants and fancy robes and all these things you didn't have in a salon, and they all cost money. So if you don't set up the financials correctly to begin with, it's going to be very challenging because labor is our number one cost of doing business. So those are the challenges that we see generally. The broad one, of course, as we've mentioned, is attracting staff right now, finding people, getting them to commit, to train, to stick with you. That's a challenge everyone is facing. I don't think I have a single client across the country who would say, "Oh, I've got enough staff. I'm good." That's just never the case right now.
Yeah, it's a severe pain point and, to that point, one that is not just in the spa world, but again, fitness facilities, almost
Oh,
every executive we have on, trying to figure out how to rectify that in real time. And to your great point earlier, there are certain tools where we can automate certain facets of a business, but at the end of the day, we are in this business of human interaction and brick and
mhm.
mortar buildings, and that's the magic of them, but it's less magical if you don't necessarily have somebody to greet you on the other side.
The experience that we're creating. And you've seen some hotels say that use AI or automation, like the Yotel in New York. I don't know if you ever stayed there, but
Yeah,
you
not
check
stayed.
in and there's the robot that takes your suitcase away, and you kind of go to a kiosk, you get your key, you go to the room. It's fine. But it's nothing like a five-star experience where you are greeted by real people and you're shown how to work the temperature control in your room, and there's people there to help you if you can't find something or your hair dryer doesn't work. I mean, I'm a hotel girl. I never stay in Airbnbs. I want someone at the desk when I need them, and then I invariably do. So when you take those pieces out of it, it's just not as much fun, in my opinion. And I think that that's going to be an advantage for us in the broader hospitality and service industry going forward.
I was gonna say, you don't like Airbnbs where you have to take out your own garbage and make your bed and do the
No,
laundry and play a
I,
cleaning bee?
I just don't get the appeal of that. If I'm going to spend the money to stay overnight somewhere, I want to make the bed, and I want to be able to pick up the phone and get something delivered or cleaned or whatever. I have just no interest in that. Now, I'm sure I'm missing out on some great experiences, but I'm having some great experiences in hotels while I'm at it, so I'll call it
Yeah.
even.
Yeah, no, as I say, just some of the articles have been so funny lately just with the demands of some Airbnb owners, and then when you correlate that with the cleaning fees that you're paying, and then
Mhm.
you're like, "What am I actually paying for?" So it's been
Right.
interesting to watch some of the backlash in that space. But, you've provided a wealth of information here on kind of the temperature check of the industry, the trends, obviously, this collective voice that's growing in regards to the fact that we are off those heels of Global Wellness Day. But we do speak with a lot of fitness industry executives on this podcast. And I know that you highlighted the shift into recovery, and a lot of these fitness facilities are starting to bring that in more recovery, more of a focus on mental wellness. So, what would be your advice based on what you're seeing in the wellness side that would be advantageous for executives to know?
Well, when you have a fitness business and people come in for that specific purpose to run on a treadmill or to lift some weights, and you've got a better weight array than they can have at home. But then what happens after that, right? And what else are we providing for them? Consumers are so well educated now. They are on the internet and watching TikTok and seeing YouTube and seeing Instagram and all the things that are available to them that look exotic and fun, and they want that at their local center. I mean, we know Planet Fitness years ago put in beds you could lay in, and the massaging chairs, et cetera, which like you have at the airport. I mean, the things are the items offered now are so much higher quality. So I think it's important to address fitness 24/7 the same way we do with spa. Like, what we've got the client for an hour a month, maybe in a spa. In fitness, maybe you even have them an hour a day, but what about the other 23? Like, how are we affecting their life outside of that 1 hour of using our equipment? So being able to have a workout and then take a sauna or take a cold plunge or do both, right? Have contrast therapy options, have a zero gravity chair, have a meditation headset that I can lay down and listen to after or before my workout. I think these are all options that need to be considered because they are at full circle of fitness and wellness and not just the exercise component. I want to say one other thing that I think we're not leveraging, which is, when you sit in a room of 30 people and you ask how many have a Fitbit, an Apple Watch, everyone does. Everyone does. When's the last time you went to a gym and your trainer said, "Let me take a look at your numbers and see what you're doing," right? We're encyclopedias of our personal data right now, but no one asks to see it. And I'm always surprised by that. Like, the doctor should say, let me see when you're sleeping and what's going on with you. So I think we need to start leveraging the data that people have and giving them these other self-catered options to to be a more full circle provider. I want to say that I just recently visited a hotel, the world's first fitness hotel. It's called Siro,
Oh, I've been following
Siro.
this. Now I am invested. Tell me all about it.
Well, I wrote about it. Actually, I wrote the trend for Global Wellness Institute when they do those January trends. I wrote a trend on wellness and sport in January of 23, and we mentioned Cyro in that trend. And so when it opened earlier this year, 2024, and I happened to be in the Middle East, I said, okay, I have to go see it. It had been open maybe 3 weeks. And it is a hotel built around healthy lifestyle. The gym rivals any beautiful health club you've ever been in. It's fantastic. It's enormous. It's full of trainers, the greatest equipment. They have a nutritionist on staff who will meet with you and discuss your nutritional needs. It's just a really interesting business. The second floor of the main level is their recovery lab. They don't call it a spa. And they have 10 treatment rooms. And half are traditional treatment rooms, and the other half are recovery. And they have devices like cryotherapy or domes or infrared beds or experience beds that you lay on and you have an experience. I think we're going to see more of that sink into hospitality and fitness as the lines get blurred between our different silos.
Yeah, I mean, the bridge is 100% being built, and we were chatting a little bit earlier as well, and, with mentioning TikTok and
Mhm.
social media really educating that consumer. We're seeing Gen Z, such a robust group in the fitness market right now, and to me, it makes a lot of sense. They've experienced 2 recessions, they have experienced a pandemic all in these formidable years of their life, so no wonder,
Mhm.
and plus they've seen the sins of our past. When you look at our obesity rates as adults and them dealing with chronic disease, makes a lot of sense that they'd be a demographic that's wanting to prioritize health and wellness, and so it's gonna be interesting to see how many more of these types of models that we see
Mhm.
upcoming, because they'll be the ones demanding it without question. I mean, the dusty, dingy gyms in hotels. Like, I've been in some very nice hotels with shocking fitness facilities sometimes because you can
Shocking.
tell it's the last thing that was thought about.
They're terrible. In the basement, never any light, and the equipment's broken. I mean, and then you contrast that with a place like Cairo, or I just visited Forte Village, which is in Sardinia. It is a huge complex of I forget how many hectares, very large. It has 8 hotels within it, and it's very sporty. They have people from Real Madrid give soccer classes. They have tennis pros. And so families go there and put the kids in sports school, or they themselves go in sports school during the day, and then they, do normal vacation things at night. There's concerts, you go in the pool, the ocean, you have dinner in one of the many restaurants. Um, but I love the way it's so active, and it has it right there easy for people to take advantage of. And it's full all summer, so these models exist, and I think we're going to start to see them more stateside as this trend continues.
Yeah, it's going to be such a fascinating space to watch because the innovations truly have been so impressive. As I say, not being there, but I followed a lot of that journey and all the press releases that came out, and it just looked like such an experience. And they've obviously, it's like you build it, the people will come. The people are demanding to really prioritize their health and wellness, and that's a momentum I don't think we're going to see stop. A lot of us had to learn it the hard way in those few years where we've had to do a lot of deep self reflection, but it's an advantage both economically and I think just as a society because those that prioritize about that for themselves generally become individuals that contribute a lot more in a positive way to our neighbors and our society in general. So I'm such a believer in that. I've so appreciated your expertise, Lisa. I do love to leave people with a little nugget of wisdom or a motivational mantra that you live by. I know that you've had a very successful career tenure. So, what would be some final words of advice?
For people starting a wellness business, for consultants, who wants advice?
Well, I would say, let's say for people that are executives in the fitness and wellness space that are
Mhm.
on that growth trajectory.
I would say that we need to think about the human and how we can serve that human in a variety of ways. When we come into the business with a history, we tend to look through that lens of what was always done. And these are exciting times because we can shed that now and we don't have to follow the old models. And if you pay attention to the new business models that are coming up that take elements of spa, elements of beauty, elements of fitness, and put them together, it's really interesting times. So I'm going to say that that old cliche of think outside the box, read things outside your industry, pay attention to what's going on in other parts of the world and think about how can I make people feel better, and what are the ways in which I can do that over and above my core competency, and I think you'll be successful.
Brilliant. Lisa Starr, thank you so much. How can people find you and get in touch with you?
My website is Wynne, Wynne, business.com. I'm very active on LinkedIn, Lisa Starr, so please link in with me and you can find all my contact information there.
Brilliant. And I'll make sure to have that in the show notes as well in case you're on the road and not able to jot it down. Lisa, thank you so much for joining me here on All Things Fitness and Wellness.
Thank you for having me, Chrissy.
You've just listened to the All Things Fitness and Wellness podcast, hosted by Chrissy Van. This episode was brought to you by Fitness World, your fitness, your way. Be sure to hit like and subscribe. We have new podcast episodes weekly featuring industry insiders and influencers. Together, we're on a mission for everyone to live a life fit and well.